getting a little bit of feedback from people, and it's been cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate the appreciation we're getting from others for the authenticity, because that's really what we're trying to do all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. If I'm going to be honest,
really
like, it's really not.
Yeah.
Because some days I genuinely feel like crap. And it's hard to talk like about motivating things, but I've also found that the act of doing this, just sitting down and talking, makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Like, helps me to begin to get out of some of the holes that I'm in my life. And I think that's one of the things that I'm learning the most actually from this is when I connect with people genuinely, like, it lifts me.
Yeah.
It always does. Like, and I think that's significant. And I think that's why this thing started, is because it's that choice, right? To connect or to die. And I've just been realizing in my own life that the more clear I can make choices in my life by being honest and being truthful, to say, no, in this moment, I am choosing to either connect or to die in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm choosing to either choose enlightenment and peace and confidence, or I'm choosing shame. Like,
yeah.
And those are happening in real time, and the moments that I have to truly connect with people is when I realize, yeah, this is true. Like, what we're doing, it is true, and it is real.
Yeah.
And I love building off of things that are real. Yeah. That's what telling the truth is for me.
Yeah.
When you lie, you're trying to build off of nothing.
Yeah, well, it's the idea that you can feel it in you. Like, for a while, I didn't say, like, connect or die type of thing. I said, like, you either feel strong or weak.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
It's like when you tell the truth, you know it because inside your intuition, you feel strong. You feel like you're building a house on a rock.
Yeah.
Versus building it on the sand. The trouble with a lie is it's built on the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And the smallest gust or like stress comes into your life, and then all of a sudden all these lies that you're trying to remember, who did I tell that to? I can't remember.
I know, right?
How did that, like it.
What was the time of day?
Yeah, and catching yourself even in the little things. Like, one thing that I found that I did was I would inflate certain aspects of stories that I would tell in order to make them more spectacular when they actually didn't add any value at all.
Absolutely.
And then I would feel stupid afterwards.
Yeah.
I'd be like if there were 5 people somewhere, I'd say there were 10. And it's like, why? That doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a habit, and that's a habit that I have to constantly work on. Like, sometimes I'll catch myself and correct it in the middle of a sentence. Be like, yeah, there's 10. I'm sorry, I don't know. I said 10. There was 5 people there. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It does take effort.
Yeah, it takes constant. You have to constantly be thinking, like, I just want to tell the truth to the best of my ability, or at least I don't want to lie anymore.
For sure. But, because, programming, it's a real thing. Like, we have been programmed.
Yeah.
We came to this, we were born with all of our DNA already there. And all of this DNA leading to very specific things, not just about our physical appearance, but also our brain, chemical makeup, and like everything. And then we were nurtured, which is really just another way of programming.
Yeah.
And I think when I say the word programming, I think people are going to think that I'm saying it in a bad way. I'm not.
Yeah.
Programming is learning.
Yeah.
Programming is progress. Programming is going from one choice to the next choice to the next choice and having it all be fluid and connected. And it leads to something. But when you look at your programming, especially as you've grown older, for me, it was like I was probably 26 years old before I really looked back on my programming and I asked myself the question, is this the program I want to be running?
Yeah.
Or like, do I not like this? And completely just had to destroy the program in order to create a new one. But that's scary.
Yeah. That's
scary. So if you've built a program of lies, in my opinion, you've built a program off of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, there actually isn't a program.
Yeah.
Lies don't create anything. And you can't create something from nothing.
Yeah.
That's why lies
And sometimes
they're hollow, they're empty,
Yeah.
there's nothing to them, but they can have crazy ramifications emotionally.
Yeah. Well, and what I find interesting is they have the illusion. It's like it's a gilded reward. You know, it's surrounded by gold and filled with garbage.
Yeah.
That's what gilded means. And so the reward can be immediate. But over time it breaks down. Over time the nothingness of those lies is revealed, even if it takes 20 years. But the more lies, it's almost like you're building a house, levels of a house.
Mm-hmm.
And the more levels you build, the farther the fall is going to be.
Absolutely.
And the more pain you're going to experience when you finally start telling the truth. And that's why I think that, you know, when we talk in this podcast, we constantly tell people, just start telling the truth today.
Yeah.
Start today, right now.
Well, that's what everything always comes down to that. And I mean, we had another topic we were going to talk about, but I feel like this is what we're talking about now. And maybe this is what we need to talk about, because we do talk about honesty so much.
Yeah.
But we've never actually talked about honesty.
Yeah.
And I feel like lies can be so damaging because eventually the lines between truth and error are completely blurred. You can reach a point where you don't know what the truth is.
Right.
And most damaging, you don't know the truth about yourself. I think I've always believed, and I've gotten this phrase from a few different people, from some friends, the most dangerous information is not what you don't know. The most dangerous information is what you have. Now I'm thinking about how to phrase it. What you believe is true, that actually is not.
Right.
That's the most dangerous information.
Yeah.
The thing that you think is true, believe is true, know is true, but actually isn't. And most damaging when it comes to your view of yourself.
Right.
Like, I'm not enough, or I'm not pretty, I'm not this, I'm not that. Comparing yourself to other people, it's all just lies.
Right.
It's all just lies. And again, like you said, you can't build something off of nothing.
Right. Well, and it doesn't allow you. So actually, I think this goes into the topic we were going to talk about pretty well. If you have a ridiculous amount of stress in your life, one question me and Natalie ask ourselves all the time when we're looking at purchasing something or a program or whatever it is, we always ask ourselves, is this going to reduce your stress or increase it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's something like, I'll give an example. I hope Natalie's okay with this. She gets her eyelashes done, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're both really busy. She doesn't like taking the time to do her makeup. This reduces her stress. When we talked about it, she's like, actually, it reduces my stress by like 8%.
That's awesome.
A day.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's worth paying for.
Yeah.
Let's pay for that.
Absolutely.
Right? And then that's not just so that you can remove all of that. It's so you can replace it with something that's worth being stressed over. So I'll give you an example of, like, maybe stress isn't the right word, but exercise, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can be stressful.
Absolutely.
It can be hard. You sweat. A lot of the times you have to look like an idiot. Like the other day, I've been trying steel maces out to work out with. So basically, it's just a big metal ball welded to a huge metal stick.
Oh wow!
And you swing it around. So you do different workouts. You swing it behind your back. It works all these transferring muscles. You mix it with squats. And I was trying it, and I looked like an idiot. And I'm 99% sure that this girl behind me was filming me.
Hopefully.
She was like, I could tell because most people are looking at their phones like this. She was looking at hers like this. And I was like, I'm okay with looking like an idiot because I want to learn this thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is some, stigma and like, what if she posted and it's like, this is gym fails or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that is a stress that I like having in my life because it's it has let's say that it increases my stress by 6%, it relieves my stress by 25%.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? Because I'm taking action. What I think that not only that I think that lies are a good example of this. Lies are something that give you an immediate, maybe 8% relief.
Yeah.
But increase your stress by 50%.
Absolutely.
So they
lies,
have
lies
they
create
have
stress.
they have they have an 8% value, but a 50% deficit.
Oh yeah.
And so that's why they're so negative over time, because as your stress level increases, or if anything goes wrong, that's why it's on a sandy foundation. So when the storms come and the wind comes, your house breaks down.
Yeah.
Because you haven't taken the time to say, okay, what's my compounding interest on this? It's kind of funny because we're using, at least I am, I'm using like almost like financial terms.
When we think, I think for most people, if I were to do one of those tests that like psychologists do, or when I say this word, you say the word that corresponds to it, right?
Right.
If I were to say stress, I think a lot of people would say money.
Yeah.
Or if I were to say money, I think a lot of people would say stress. I mean, so those
Right.
things go together. But I also think exactly what you said, lies and stress go hand in hand, because lies increase stress. And in the same way that lies are built off nothing, think of this scenario. If you have $0 in your bank account and all of a sudden your car breaks down, what are you going to experience in that moment?
Right.
You're going to experience stress because you're trying to respond to a situation with nothing.
Yeah.
So I would actually personally use a different word. I think it's important to talk about the different stresses, like
Right.
the different ways we use the word stress. Stress is obviously a physiological response. It can be measured. There are certain signs of it. It corresponds a lot to a fight or flight response.
There's chemicals
it's a
in your
survival
brain,
thing, right?
right?
There's chemicals.
Right, cortisol or...
Yeah, cortisol, right? And I'm not an expert when it comes to that. I'm just not.
Yeah.
And maybe you know more about it and we can talk more about it. But what I feel like I do have something to say, what I do feel like I am somewhat of an expert on when it comes to the emotional side. How stress reads in people's emotions. When people use the word stress, what are the emotions that it carries? And how did those emotions and those emotional patterns influence the way that people see themselves, how they show up in their lives, and how they move forward towards their desired results?
Right.
And when it comes to the emotional stress, I have never, ever experienced an individual who has benefited from emotional stress.
Right.
And I think that so often there are individuals who are attached to it because they're attached to being busy. They're attached to their to-do lists.
Right.
Those things give a sense of responsibility, but they can also just be a mask of responsibility.
Right.
It can just be stress masked as responsibility.
Right.
Because I view stress as moving from one fire to the next and being like, oh my gosh, there's a fire over there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put it out. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Oh, I put it out. I hope that never happens again. Whereas responsibility would take that same situation and say, okay, there's a fire over there. What do I have to take care of it? Oh, okay, I have this fire blanket that I bought specifically for this purpose. Boom, done.
Yeah.
Or you don't have the fire blanket and you're like, okay, there's a fire over there. What do I got? I don't know. I got some towels. I know people talk about throwing milk on fires. Like,
right.
Maybe I could Google it real quick. Like, you start to think about how can I respond to this?
Right.
And there might be a level of physiological stress that happens, but an individual is focusing on, there's a problem. What do I have to solve it? They're solution focused instead of problem focused.
Right.
Stress is very problem focused.
Right.
And when you focus on problems, they multiply and they expand. When you focus on solutions, they multiply and expand. And that to me is responsibility.
Yeah.
An individual who wasn't able to respond, they're like, man, that fire, that was kind of stressful. That was more stressful than I wanted to be because I wasn't prepared. Well, what could I do next time to be prepared? Oh, I should buy a fire blanket.
Yeah.
Boom, they buy a fire blanket. The next time a fire happens, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, or...
I'm so grateful that I increased my responsibility.
Yeah. This is interesting. So, then as we focus on solutions, I think we can even come up with even better solutions.
Yes.
So giving your fire example, maybe you create within your own life through your daily habitual acts, you create an automatic fire extinguisher that takes that stress and removes it.
Yep.
As soon as it pops up, gone.
Gone. Absolutely.
Pops up again, gone. A good example of this would be, so we talked about finances. Let's say you save 10% of what you earn. No matter what, 10% is put into a savings account.
Absolutely.
Every single month. Even if you made $100, $10 of that, even though you're strapped, goes into that savings account.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about money, I say we just keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Because this is the truth. And you tell me if you believe this is true, because this might be an outlandish statement, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're stressed about money right now, you will choose to be stressed about money when you make more.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with
That's
that.
just the truth.
Well, if you haven't
so
taken
people
the
say, well, if I had more money, then I wouldn't be stressed. It's like,
yeah.
No, because you think that your stress is something you can't control.
Yeah.
It
So you're not
absolutely
taking
is.
responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of this is lottery winners. No matter how much money they make,
They blow it.
they blow it.
On stupid crap.
Because they haven't built the responsibility to respond, the ability to respond. And actually, most of them have said that their life was worse.
Yep. Way worse.
Like, way worse.
Because they hadn't earned the skill and the mindset to be able to know what even to do with that level of money.
Right.
And that's an important thing. And so, yeah, I just think an individual, if right now you view money with a sense of responsibility, and that can look one of two ways. Either you're doing that, or you're like in a phase of, I'm analyzing my past, realizing I'm not doing that, and then now I'm putting things in place to where I could get to the point that I could do that.
Right.
I'm going to start budgeting. I'm going to start working with my budget to see how much I could. Maybe if I don't feel like I can do 10% right now, just start with the budget.
Yeah.
Figure out what you're doing.
Right.
Just spend a 30-day period where you don't think you think about money the same way you always have, and just track it.
Right.
See what's going out. And then you'll have a greater awareness, you'll have a greater sense of responsibility to be able to tweak your budget, to be able to make better decisions, and then you can track that.
Yeah.
And then eventually you could reach the point where you're saving 10%.
Yeah. And
so people just look at it and they're like,
yeah.
I can't do 10% right now, so well, guess I got to keep living in this stress pattern.
Right.
It's like, because you're choosing it.
Yeah. Well, and no matter if you haven't prepared yourself beforehand, then when the money comes in, your current patterns are going to continue. Maybe you'll get worse. And get worse.
They're going to amplify.
Because you're going to have a higher ability to dig yourself a bigger hole.
If you like Cheetos, you might be buying yourself truckloads and just be like, oh man, I love Cheetos so much.
Right. Or like let's say you're able to have some money in the bank. The bank's willing to loan to you now. Now you can get yourself into a hole that is going to be borderline like a bigger hole, a deeper hole. And so the
like that story when Donald Trump, like just that historic story when he saw the beggar on the street and he looked to his daughter and he was like, that beggar is actually worth way more than I am because I have millions of dollars in debt. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth, right? As you increase your responsibility, you're also increasing how far you can go.
Right. But and this is interesting. This is a thought that I've been having, and this just came to me, so I just want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Yes, you have farther that you can fall, right?
Absolutely.
And this is I get a little bit emotional around this. We are standing on the shoulders of thousands of generations who have died terrible, miserable deaths so that we could reach. And so that we could help our children reach even farther. I think, this is me, that if we aren't taking as much responsibility onto our shoulders, because before the responsibility was, don't die. Mm-hmm. I have to go for 3 years.
It was survival, right?
It was stress. Yeah, it was survival. Like there's, I mean, I've got thousands of stories of my own ancestors and the things that they had to do to survive.
I mean, the Vikings, right?
Yeah, right. Like I've got right, and if I look at all those generations and I think, and I'm ungrateful for the sacrifices that they've given to provide me the opportunities that I have now, I just think like if someone is living less than what they could, if they're doing less than they really can, for me, that is the highest ungratitude. That is like the highest selfishness that you could possibly have.
Because you know what I'm realizing? Just what you're saying. Generations before us, by their sacrifices, by the lives they lived, by the world that they created, they increased our responsibility, our ability to respond. I mean, you look at technology, you look at this country, you look at
this podcast.
Everything. We literally are standing on the responsibility that was created by other individuals choosing into responsibility.
Yeah.
Because an individual chose into the responsibility of, I'm going to create a computer, we now have everything everything that's come after that.
Yeah.
And how that is able to create us being able to step into responsibility, to be able to create things in our life. And I've felt that exactly what you're describing, and I can completely understand the emotions of it, because I've always loved the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Right.
And I've always loved that moment on the bridge where, Tom Hanks' character looks at Matt Damon as he's dying and says, "Earn this." And I went to Arlington Cemetery and just stood kind of on one of the hills and just looked around, and as far as my eye could see in every direction, it was just white headstones. And it was this realization that every single one of these men and women, I'm sure there are women now that are buried in Arlington, every single one of these men and women had lives like mine. People they cared about. Jobs they were excited about, or maybe not excited about, but they had lives, and they had essence to it and details, and it was almost overwhelming to sit there and feel exactly what you're describing, the sacrifices, the terrible, terrible deaths of thousands and millions even of individuals to lead to now. And how am I choosing to respond in the life that I've been given because how they chose to respond?
Right. Well, and I think that you can see, just like what we were talking about with lies, that as you go through your life, you're shedding your skin. You're shedding your masks. And the older you get, the less you can hide. Because if you meet a grumpy old person, the reason that they are so miserable is because they find, the shell is finally coming off. The veneer is coming off. But then I've met old people that I felt privileged to be in the presence of.
Yeah.
Because of the way they lived, and because they sacrificed and told the truth and lived their life that way and were generous. Like when you meet that old grandma that just wants to make you cookies when you come over.
Yeah.
That's like, oh my gosh, you're here. I'm so excited that you're and they make you feel like, I'll never forget, my grandpa Swenson, and my grandma Carol as well. But I still remember this, when my grandpa would look at me, I felt like I was the only one who existed. And the way he thought about things was different. When he would have a really bad waitress that was mean to him, he would give her a bigger tip, a big tip.
Yeah.
Because he said, if somebody is that miserable, maybe I can help her leave it a little. And I just think that, where was I going with this? I just think that if you don't start making the decisions now, by the time you're 65, everyone's going to know who you are.
Yeah, seriously.
And then by the time you're at your deathbed, and you're surrounded, hopefully, by those that you've impacted and that you've loved, you can go out of this life in a burst of gratitude rather than, I wish I would have, rather than regret. Because regret is I believe that regret is the highest form of hell on this planet that we can go through mortally. Mm-hmm. Because it says I had an opportunity to accept responsibility, but I shirked it instead.
Yeah, and it would have made me better. Because that's what when you increase your responsibility, you've increased your ability to respond, and I think you do that by becoming a better person, by learning new things, by getting around new people and hearing their story and listening to their stories and recognizing the privileges that you've been given and using them. But it all comes down to exactly what we were talking about, and where this all started was honesty. Yeah. Trying to just be doing our best to be honest.
Yeah.
All the time, to seek for what is the truth here. Do I have to be stressed out about the situation, or do I have an ability to respond by the very fact that I'm alive?
Yeah.
And the truth is, every moment you draw breath, you have the capacity to choose how you're going to respond to anything. No one can take that away from you. And in fact, any individual, I believe, that would try to take that away from you, that's the greatest crime against nature. That's why rape, murder, those things are just terrible. Right. Because you're literally trying to take away another individual's ability to respond. And that's evil.
Right.
By its very nature, that's evil. It's the opposite of freedom. And freedom is this beautiful thing. It's an ability to be able to say, hey, I got this problem in front of me. I'm going to attack it this way. And if it doesn't work out, okay, I'm going to learn from it. And the next time that a problem comes, I'm going to maybe choose to attack it a different way.
Right.
And a different way. And a different way. And a different way. And you start to program yourself differently. You start to learn differently. You progress differently. You slowly climb the mountain. And then when you climb that mountain, there's probably another mountain, and another mountain,
well,
and another
then
mountain.
Your ability to, and what my hope is that never ends.
It won't.
I hope
I
that
believe
never
it will.
ends.
I don't believe it will.
Because I think that if it does, you die. I think that if it ever ended, if that constant process of growing and learning and moving and once water stops moving, it becomes stagnant and it becomes something that kills life and doesn't give it. I believe that principle of nature is an eternal one. And I think that, I hope, sometimes I've talked to people and they talk about this idea of perfection as a place that you are going to arrive at. That someday all of this is going to be all better. Mm-hmm. I hope that's not the case, because that sounds like hell.
Seriously. You're like, whoa.
That sounds like hell to me.
Because why would you all of a sudden, if you're at this level in terms of your ability to respond, your character, who you are, and then all of a sudden you die, and you're put into this type of existence, you're going to be a person who won the lottery.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have all this power, I have no idea what to do with it. And it's actually going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing. And so the truth of being able to say, okay, I have this ability to respond, but let's line upon line, a little bit at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's an empowering thing. And I think whether or not you believe in a life after this, I believe in the principle that matter can be neither created nor destroyed.
Right.
If something matters, nothing can destroy it. That's why principles like love and honesty and kindness have existed as long as because nothing can destroy it. It matters.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah.
Who created music?
Yeah.
I mean, music has just
Where
always
did it
been
come from?
Because it matters. It has substance to it. Lies have no substance. Therefore, they don't matter. The truth has substance and it matters. And so, because we're made of matter, I don't think we will ever die. truly.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree that there's an afterlife, your body's going to move from one form to another.
Yeah.
And from that form to another form. And I don't know what the forms are.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist, but, you know, literally air goes up into the sky and becomes water.
Yeah. Well,
that's the cycle of life.
Yeah.
Leaves are shed and they die and they come back to life in this new form. Like, nature is trying to teach us something, that nothing truly dies.
Yeah. Well, and energy is never wasted.
Nope.
It can't wasted.
Be.
Yeah.
It can't be.
Oh.
Energy becomes potential energy.
Right.
Potential energy becomes kinetic energy. Kinetic energy, like, yeah.
Yeah. And I just think that, you know what, I kind of want to read the quote. So
Yeah.
I've been going through all the classics lately.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit upset that I didn't read these as a child. Because there's some of them, at least for me, I couldn't read very well growing up. So that was probably, had a lot to do with it. And now that there's audiobooks, like, I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
So since in the last 8 years, I started counting it, but I've read like well over 400 books in the last 8 years. And what I've found interesting is I've began to read these classic books that they don't allow, like some of them have been taken out of schools.
Really?
Like they won't allow kids to read them anymore. And I don't know about Moby Dick. I don't know if that's, I'd have to go look. But I've been reading Moby Dick.
Mm-hmm.
Herman Melville is not talking about a fish. He's not talking about a white whale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He's not, Captain Ahab is a part of your personality. Ishmael is a part of your personality. Queequeg is a part of your personality.
Mm-hmm.
These are just expressions of that truth.
Absolutely.
And so
that has never died and never can.
Right. And so when I read you this quote, this is literally one of thousands of quotes I could read. Maybe not thousands, at least hundreds.
It's a long book.
It is a long book. And I've only got I think I've got 8 hours left of it. But Natalie, when she was, because I was listening to this while we were on a trip, and I just kept saying, wow. Wow. Wow.
Like Lou Wilson.
Yeah, like I just kept listening
Owen Wilson,
to it. Yeah,
Owen
Owen.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Wow.
I kept listening to it, and I was just like, this. I wish I could sit down with Herman Melville.
Yeah.
When he was a clerk, in his last 20 years of his life, when he's like, yeah, I used to be a writer, but now I'm just a clerk. I would love to have sat down and had a conversation, because his breadth of knowledge in just the way he describes something is vast. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so this is a quote from Herman Melville in the book Moby Dick. For as this appalling ocean surrounds the verdant land, so in the soul of man there lies one insular Tahiti, full of peace and joy, but encompassed by all the horrors of a half-known life. God keep thee, push not from this isle, thou canst never return. And I think what he's talking about there, I think there's a lot that he's talking about there, but if you want to be filled with peace and joy, then your focus has to be telling the truth. Your purpose has to be giving love. Yeah. If you have those two things, then even though you're encompassed by the horrors of a half-known life, you'll still have that with you. Yeah. Even though there's a fire that comes up.
Absolutely.
You can step into it in a attitude of that sounds so cheesy, an attitude of gratitude.
I mean, it is cheesy, but
yeah, it is.
Whatever. But no, I think, I think what he's describing, and just to add to what you're saying, truth, love, and just presence too, because he describes you can never return. There's the now. Now is a moment you will, at least from my knowledge, like if time travels, I always do this. Like, if time travel's true, like Nope, it's not like it, or at least I don't know about it like ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'll never be able to return to this time. This is the moment of connection. Right now is the moment of connection. Now is the only time connection can happen.
Right.
True connection. I mean, I think you can connect to the truth of the past.
Right.
You can connect to the vision of the future.
But you can only connect to it even in the present.
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
if you don't choose to connect to it in the present, then it doesn't have power.
Yeah. Well, it's like I can connect with my ancestors by reading their stories, even though it was in the past, but I connect with it now. And then I use their principles that they live by in the present to create my future.
Yeah.
It's like you can either have fear or faith in the future, and you can have gratitude, or you can have regret of the past.
Yeah.
Those are like your two choices.
Seriously.
You can connect or die.
Like truth or lie.
Yeah.
Truth or a lie.
Yeah.
Responsibility or stress. It's like, yeah, if you want to tell the truth, I believe that will lead to greater responsibility. And that's how I'm going to choose to live my life.
Right.
If I'm going to choose between choosing to be responsible and responding to situations, or choosing to be stressed and responding to situations, I can tell you which one I want to choose all the time. I want to choose this because I believe it's founded in truth. And I look at this, and in my experience in my life, it's founded upon a lie. I've been stressed out about situations that I ultimately handled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. And maybe I didn't handle them to my liking. But that's where the responsibility should have stepped in and said, okay, well then what do you get to change?
Right.
What do you get to do differently? What do you get to learn from this? Connect to the present moment, connect to the truth,
right.
And you'll be able to respond better. That shift is just happening now in my emotional area.
Right.
And I believe that if I can shift in terms of my emotions, I do believe I can begin to impact my physiological responses to things. I really, truly do. And what we've seen and what I know, people who've researched stress, they've been able to show individuals who experience more stress and more physiological stress responses, it lowers their life expectancy.
Right. Right.
So it's not like this is not an important discussion. And if you can shift your emotions, I believe you can begin to shift your physiological makeup, because you'll be able to calm yourself quicker, to be able to make better choices in the now. I think stress kind of like encompasses the past, the present. It's like fear. It's got all of that stuff that is ultimately, in my opinion, based in lies.
Right.
But there's something we can learn from it.
Right.
And it can absolutely contribute. But I want to choose into responsibility because I feel like it's fully based in the truth of who I am, what I've created, my resources, and all of it at that moment when I'm responding to any situation that life wants to throw at me.
And what I love about this, and maybe I've said this in the podcast before, I'm sure we'll repeat certain things, but
always.
That's where I think in most of the ancient texts that I've read, they have a phrase that's repeated often. And it came to pass.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fundamental truth. That's maybe said more in like the Bible and ancient texts than any other phrase.
Seriously.
And it came to pass. It came, so it can pass.
Yeah.
And so when you're in the middle, let's say you're in extreme stress right now. The future is unknown. Your past is filled with regret.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not going to last forever. Second of all you need is one good day. And if you can't get one good day, all you need is one good hour. And if you can't get one good hour, all you need is 10 good minutes.
Yeah.
To begin to step in, all you need to tell the truth for 10 minutes.
Do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Objectively look at your situation and say, what is actually going on here? For 10 minutes. And begin to step into it. Because if you can have one good day, if you put out your running shoes and you go for a jog, or you go to the gym, or you eat healthy for one day, see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I believe that if you're increasing your ability to respond by 1% every day, by the end of the year, you're not 365% better. I think that you're 3,000 times better.
Absolutely.
Because that expands on itself.
Compound interest, right?
Yeah.
No, but seriously, absolutely. If you're able to, I mean, it's the same as if you were to put $1 million into a savings account or some sort of account that gives you residual over $1,000.
Yeah.
You're going to have a greater return off of the more that you have. So as that grows, yeah, I think it's so cool. And as you were talking, you're saying, and it came to pass. I think that so often when people think of progress, they think of it as a choice. Like it's a choice to progress or to not. In my opinion, progress is not a choice. You're either going to progress towards one thing,
right,
or towards another thing.
Yeah.
You can't really choose.
Moving.
You can't choose whether or not you're gonna, again, unless like you choose to end the current form of your progress by like killing yourself. You might change what it looks like, but for the most part, time will always pass. It's always going to pass. Things are always going to move forward. This moment will always lead to a next moment.
Right.
I can't choose whether or not I progress. I can only choose in what direction.
Yeah.
And do I want to progress towards truth, or do I want to progress towards lies? Do I want to progress towards responsibility, or do I want to progress towards stress? Do I want to progress towards connection, or do I want to progress towards death?
Yeah.
Towards
and disconnection.
Towards inspiration and enlightenment,
right,
or shame and
right,
death.
And it's your choice.
Those are happening
it's
all the time. It's
up
happening
to you.
all the time.
Yeah.
And you get to choose between one or the other. One or the other. Opposition in all things. There always is. And how you choose will determine your direction. And you always, pending someone else not trying to take away your capacity, you always have the ability, the opportunity, and the capacity to respond.
Right.
Because of agency.
Because of agency. Because of your ability to make a choice. Absolutely. That's why I think that there are some belief systems, specifically determinism and nihilism, that I think are some of the most pernicious, some of the most negative, not because they're some evil thing, but because it allows someone to step into victimhood and feel justified in it and then never take responsibility. Yeah. And so that's why I push back against those belief systems so strongly, is because they remove one's ability to take responsibility and their ability to respond, and it replaces it with nothing.
Yeah.
Because it
blurs the truth to the point
right,
where there is no truth.
There is no truth. Right. And
if there's no truth, then there's no lie.
Yeah.
And if there's no truth and no lie, then does anything really matter?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, what I choose to matters.
Yeah. And so that's why I think the way to combat that kind of belief system is through connection. Is through, like, that's why, it's so cheesy. Like even Elon Musk, when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he's like, and this is a guy highly accomplished, right? In terms of the things of his ability to shape the world is crazy. But then he just said, he's like, I know it sounds cheesy, but love actually is the answer. And I think that's fundamentally
true. Love
true.
is the truth, and everyone shall reach it.
Yeah. And as we begin to understand, and as we begin to increase your responsibility, and maybe you're starting right now, you're listening to this, and you're like, I don't have very much responsibility, or I'm in a rut, or I'm stuck, I can't move. These are things that you don't have to start by hitting the gym for 2 hours a day.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? Like
watch a podcast. Read a book.
Read a book. Go on a walk while you do it.
Seriously.
5-minute walk. See if you feel a little better.
Just breathe
for
10
minutes. Go talk to somebody for 10 minutes. Call someone have a conversation with someone who's good in your life. Or if you don't have anyone good in your life, if all the people that are around you are disconnected and negative,
go find a volunteer job.
But you also have this amazing piece of technology. You can put your headphones in and connect immediately with people who are positive.
Absolutely.
And as long as you keep that in your ear, let's say that you're a teenager right now, and you're in a household that's difficult and abusive, you can still listen to something. You have an opportunity still to respond. Yeah. And you get to decide. That's the best part, is you get to decide what things mean.
Yeah. You get to take control. And I think a place where we can maybe start to wrap up, because I think it's something we do need to talk about. I think a lot of times when the lines between responsibility and stress get really blurred, as we were talking about, the lines between truth and lies getting blurred, I think that happens when people try to take on responsibility that is not theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like right now, if you are trying to change your spouse, no wonder you're stressed.
Yeah.
You're trying to respond for someone.
Right.
And you can't.
Right.
You don't have unless you're going to, again, completely I'm going to sin against or disobey the laws of nature and take over another person's agency. There's nothing you can do, so why are you stressing about it? So part of responsibility, I think, is to have a very honest conversation about, well, what are my responsibilities? What do I have the ability to respond to?
Right.
And what do I not? What do I not have? I mean, you can always respond to another person, what they do, but you can't control how they're going to respond.
Right. And so all you can do really is give people opportunity to take responsibility. And frankly, like, there's so many things that we stress about in our lives that we have no control over. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I have no control over foreign powers or over the president or over
the pending
Congress.
Nuclear holocaust, right?
Like,
that's happening every day, I guess.
Yeah.
In some people's eyes.
Right. Or I can't control.
But you can be prepared.
I can be prepared. That's it. That's all you can do. And truly, I believe this to my core. All you can do is all you can do. But all you can do is enough. And I really think that if we, it's easy for us. Like, when I'll talk to somebody and they're like, kids are starving in Africa. And I'm like, yes, let's donate, let's spend some money to try to help them. But how many people are within your own life are starving in some way? How many people within your own sphere of influence? And you may think it's trivial, but if you affect 15 people, you're only, you're only a couple levels away from a million.
Seriously.
And only a few more away from 1 billion. Like, your ability to affect 15 people or 5 people or one other person affects the world.
If even yourself.
Yeah.
At first.
Like even one thing I found, it's been super interesting because my little daughter, she's so wonderful, but she's sweet and sour. But she smiles and says, "Hi, friend," to people when we go places. And she's done this thing a few times where we've been at a grocery store, we've been somewhere, and she'll just run up and hug someone. And she'll tell him, she's like, "You are pretty." Oh. Or she's or she'll say, like, "Hi, friend." Oh, Man. Oh, you're good. I'll be right back. But, so she'll say this to someone, and I can literally see their countenance change. Mm-hmm. There was one in particular that I'll never forget, that she ran up to this lady who had some obvious, physical deformities. And I wouldn't have noticed that she was so downcast. And my daughter just sprinted away from us. We were in Target. She runs away from us, and we're like, "Evelyn, come back here." She runs up and she hugs her. She just hugs her leg. She says, "Hi, friend." And you saw, this lady's countenance go from downtrodden, and she had this huge smile. And then Evelyn just said, she's like, "You're beautiful." And then she ran back to us. That's all she did. And you could see it change.
Yeah.
You could see that happen right there. How many people, like so many people, are so downtrodden and so negative and so surrounded by
telling themselves lies
all the time. Lies that they chose to believe.
Stressed out about everything.
What if you just smiled at them? Like, your ability to respond, it's such a low bar. It's so low.
Just do what you can do.
Yeah, that's it.
It's authenticity.
Go about your day. and I promise you that as you do it, things get better. But if you stay in this space of lies and things are out of my control, and you focus on the kids starving in Africa too much, I think that's good. I think you should, and you should do everything you can to help, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after that, don't focus on who's around you.
Yeah.
Focus on what you can respond to.
Absolutely. I mean, if you fundamentally believe to your core that you have a responsibility to end the hunger in Africa, like that's your mission, that's your calling, power to you.
Yeah,
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like that's within my responsibility. I mean, maybe there's something I can do one day, but right now I don't know what I can really do, and I don't know if that makes me selfish or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's what you're saying. It's an honest inventory of how am I living my life, how am I responding, how am I showing up, how am I showing up for myself, how am I showing up for other people. And at this point, I'm like, I don't even know what we titled this episode.
I have no idea.
We've talked about so many different things, and if you're on the other end of this and you're like, whoa, Dave and Logan move a mile a minute, we sometimes do.
Yeah.
Because we're very passionate about this, incredibly passionate about mindset, because I am a firm believer that your perception does create your reality.
Yeah.
And I've seen what you're describing. I've seen in the faces of people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis. People are in prison of their own making.
Yeah.
With the lies and the deceptions that they choose into. They almost attach. I've been having some conversations with people, and it's almost like they attach to stress, like it's a part of their identity.
Right.
Like if they weren't stressed out, they don't know who they would be. To the point where they've probably heard, oh my gosh, so-and-so, you're so stressed out, so many times that they've just decided that's who they are. That, thinking about that just causes me pain, because I know what that's like.
Yeah.
I know what that feels like. Even today, I know what it feels like to a certain degree, because there are things that I'm stressed about. But I'm choosing into a responsibility mindset.
Right.
Instead of saying, oh my gosh, there's so much I can't take, I feel so overwhelmed, I'm choosing to say, hey, whether or not I actually do have the ability to respond to all this, it doesn't matter. I have to.
Yeah.
And believing that I have the ability to respond, in my experience, has shown that it gives me the power to.
Yeah.
When I believe in myself, that I can navigate life, that I can create good relationships, romantic or otherwise, that I can be a good father, that I can have financial success, that I can have physical success, that I can have any area of my life that I desire. If I believe that I can, I've seen that that's helped me to reach it, to reach higher, to do exactly what you're saying, to stand on the shoulders of all the incredibly responsible people who made decisions in the past that have created the life that I'm able to live today, including the freedoms, the technologies, the opportunities, everything. Then I start to feel empowered.
Yeah.
I don't feel overwhelmed. I feel excited even for the things that come, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
Excited for the good and the bad, because I know it's going to teach me something. The truth is, there is truth in everything.
Yeah.
If you just choose to see it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry if we've been everywhere, but I truly believe everything we've said represents connective material that we're very passionate about. And if there's been any sort of confusion it's probably because we just don't have the ability to explain it
Right.
as well as we feel it.
Right.
And that's probably the truth.
Which I think a lot of us run into that. It's interesting when you, if at least for me, it takes me a while. Like I'll learn a truth, and in order to convert it into words, it takes a while for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes like years for me to figure out, how do I say this?
Yeah.
And
we're hoping that we're on that journey.
Yeah.
Like, in real time. Like
Yeah.
that as we continue to do this, no matter how many people are listening, how many people are impacted by it, that we'll get better
yeah.
at explaining ourselves, and we'll be pushed to learn new truth because we want to teach it, and that's a beautiful thing.
I agree.
I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, just the line upon line. Start where you can authentically start.
Take action today.
Yeah.
No more like waiting. Like what I found is,
waiting's an illusion though.
It is.
Because like I said, you can't choose to progress. You can just choose where you're progressing to. You're getting older. All of us are getting older as we speak.
Time is passing.
Yeah. What are you doing with it?
Yeah. And if you want to continue to wait till tomorrow, you'll continue to wait till tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. If you say tomorrow,
yeah,
you'll realize tomorrow will never come.
Yeah. It never will. And then all
becomes the day.
all of a sudden a decade goes by.
Yeah.
And you're like, what did I do with the last decade of my life?
Seriously.
And that's a good question for you to start asking yourself today.
All those empty tomorrow promises.
Right.
What about the today promises?
Right now.
The right now promises.
Yeah, if you're listening to this at 11 o'clock at night, what can you do immediately to begin?
Can you go for a run?
Yeah. Can you go for a run? Can you get up and go write something down?
Text a friend that you've been meaning to text. Write down some thoughts that you've been meaning to write down.
And
record something. If you've been wanting to do a podcast, what do you want to talk about? Sit down, record yourself for 10 minutes. That might be the first episode of your podcast.
Right.
Like, seriously.
Do it clumsily.
Yeah.
Be willing to look like a fool.
Absolutely. Be willing to say stupid crap.
You know, that there's one thing that's interesting within Jungian psychology. Mm-hmm. He says, the fool precedes the savior.
The fool precedes... Oh, yeah.
The fool precedes the savior. And so the idea is, you have to look like an idiot first.
Like a fool.
You have to look like a fool. You have to have people like, dude, that person's crazy.
And
like, then
I know
over
I'm
time,
a fool trying to increase my responsibilities so I could be something,
right.
Or do something.
And if you're okay with looking like a fool, if you can get to the place where you're comfortable enough with yourself, the truth is obvious enough that there really isn't a saber-toothed tiger in the closet waiting to attack you if you try to do it. Then you can start to look like a fool until you aren't one anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think we should end on is that start telling the truth today. Start being a fool if you have to. Because what will precede that is what's worth fighting for.
Yeah, just be honest.
Be honest.
Just be honest. Yeah, man. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening to our podcast, for being a part of the Connect or Die Nation. Make sure you subscribe to this page, hit that bell so you can get all notifications when we have new podcasts. In the description is all our different social media accounts. You can go and follow us there. And remember to be honest and go out there and connect.